and I will hand over to Janelle, who is going to lead us through the process. Thanks, Janelle.
Right. Thanks, Jacinda. As Jacinda said, today we're talking about the taxable payments reporting for Sage CRE, or for us old-time users, Sage Timberline. So first of all, what is it and why do we have to do it? Taxable payments, well, why do we do it? We do it because the tax office says we have to, and we don't have a choice. In the construction industry, we're one of those industries where it's not negotiable. And it's basically reporting on all your subcontractors, the amount that you paid to your subcontractors for the last financial year. So the tax office can ensure that subcontractors are meeting their tax obligations and not working as a subcontractor to avoid paying, you know, their tax that they would pay as a hired employee. Okay, so how do we do it and how do we submit it? So the first thing you need to do that we always recommend is that you check that you remembered, or if you're new to the company like you, Kelvin, you want to check that the person before you closed off last year. So if you go to, in the AP, everything we do today is in the AP module. You don't need any other modules. And of course, everything you can also get to all of these options via the tree method in the desktop, but we all know I'm an old-fashioned user, so that's why I launched the whole module. So the first thing I always do is I go to close taxable payments year, and I'm not actually going to do it, but you want to check your dates. I'm working on sample data, that's why my dates are a bit crazy, but your taxable payments should be ending in 2022, and then your next year will obviously be 2023. If you forgot to do it last year, or Kelvin, the person before you, forgot to do it, that's the first thing you need to do, get your years correct. The other place you can check that is here in company settings, AP settings. You need administrator rights to get to this, but that will tell you where your taxable payments period is up to as well. Okay. So once you've checked your dates and that you're in the correct year, we always recommend that you run the taxable payment reconciliation report. This is a custom report, and all our clients that are on a customer care agreement with us get it free of charge. On my menu, it's just called TPAR, but on your menu, it might be under miscellaneous. It might be under a subgroup called year end, anything like that. If you can't find it or you don't think you've got that report, just send in an email to the help desk and just in the subject line put taxable payment report. Okay. So I'll just run that report. Now, if you've got multiple companies or GL prefixes in the GL and you're going to submit multiple taxable payment files to the ATO, you need to run this report multiple times and enter your company in this top field. Yeah, Kelvin, you haven't got multiple companies, so you're going to leave that blank. And then, of course, you're going to put in your year, your dates for your year. But again, I'm on sample data, so I do crazy things with dates. And then you can preview this report. My report's only short because of sample data. Your report's going to be many, many pages long. And you're looking for these types of errors. We can see that Beavis and Painting, it's telling me straight up that I'm missing the AVN number for that. And it's also telling me that the amount paid, it's also telling me that the sum of the amount paid from the transaction file does not equal what is held in the vendor master file. Okay, so they're the sort of things you're looking for. If you're not sure how to sort of fix any of these, again, just send in something to the help desk and we'll address them one by one. But it is uncommon to have outside of the ABN, this second error message, amount paid from the vendor record is different from the transaction total, is an unusual message, okay? So contact us if you get it and we need to resolve it. Obviously, your report total, you know, you should have a feel. If it comes up $10 million and you know that's an outrageous figure, you've got a problem, and check your dates, okay? So you can either print this to PDF or just view it. But that's basically your initial reconciliation report, okay? And once you're happy with that initial report, you can go ahead and start generating your taxable payment file. And from there, we go to Tasks, Generate Taxable Payment Report. And that brings up this screen. And then going back to what we were saying is if your company has multiple entities, is where this field will come in. So if you've got multiple entities that you need to submit to the tax office separately, and that generally is if your entities have separate ABN numbers, you need to submit by a fiscal entity, and you would prop your prefix in that field, for example. If you've only got one company in your GL, which is for you, Kelvin, at Cobalt, you've only got one company in your GL. So this drop-down list will be by vendor, okay? And then, of course, you've always got to manually enter the ABN, which is annoying to say the least. But so I'm just going to put in Thrive's ABN, 8553, because it does have to be a valid number. This ABNs are those numbers that actually have check digits in them. So if you enter in something gummy, it won't work. So that's got to go in the top and the bottom, and just enter someone's name there. And of course, I know, again, just sample data. So I'm just putting in WA because that's where I live, but hopefully all your company data will be correct from there. The minimum report amount. So it's really up to you, but generally anyone who is less than $1, you wouldn't bother reporting on. Okay, so once you've got all that information correct, you can move on to your next window. And that's where to save your file. So today I'm just going to save mine on the desktop, but you may have a specific network location that you want to save these to. And if you want to put an additional, you know, if you're working in multiple entities, you might want to add your entity name to the file name there. But I'm just going to save that as taxable payments. And then we get to the next screen. So really, these checkboxes here, you will leave blank, okay? Unless you're doing something specific, unless this is a second upload and the ATO have instructed you to do an amended file. But by and large, that will be blank for most of our clients. You want your current year to date in that field. And with the tax payments, taxable payments, if you do have to regenerate a file, you can only do this year and last year, okay? So of course, your date is going to say 2022 year ending. And this is the important bit. This printer information, you know, a lot of people's IT department have defaulted them that all their printouts just go straight to a print file and they never see it. But it's really handy to be aware that when you do this, you're actually doing two printouts. You're printing a journal of all the transactions, and then you're actually printing the payment summary, which back in the bad old days, we used to actually mail out to the subcontractors. We don't use this payment summary printout anymore, but just be aware that it is generating. So for the purpose of today, I really want to read that journal report. So I'm going to go to printer setup. You're probably already checked to print to file, but if you're not, just check print to file, And then I'm going to select, you know, rather than get it lost in the deep, dark, you know, files on your server, I'm just going to send mine to the desktop today, and I'm just going to call it printout number 1. Call it whatever you like. I'm a lazy typist. Number 1. I'm just going to cancel that. I've obviously clicked. Got all sorts. Why does it always happen when you're presenting, Jacinda?
Don't know, Janelle. That's not fair, is it?
Yes, let's try and get out of that. Right, we're going to do the printout again. Oh, you bugger.
Logged you out of the whole thing.
Yeah, and that was my fault because while I was talking, I inadvertently tried to send it to a printout to a disk drive, which is all my mistake. So we'll try all of that again. We'll go back into our generate payments. 74138553401. We'll just copy and paste that down. Put in a name. WA, because that's the best state to live in. Right, so again, we'll get back. Right. So we were talking about our printouts, our journal. I'm going to send to a print file on my desktop, and I'm going to call it printout number 1. Save. That's much better. And then my payment summaries, which we don't give to subcontractors anymore, I'm going to print to file as well. I'm going to select the file. I'm going to send that to my desktop. I'm going to call that printout number 2, but obviously you'll use whatever names you like. And now I'm going to start. So you can see it's syncing. If you wanted to bring up your background tasks, you can see it's going through my AP file, and yours will come up normal. Now, before you do anything, I like to check my printouts. So if you back into the AP module, if I go File, Printouts, and I pass back to where I saved my printouts, I'm just going to open up printout number 1, which was my journal. And there's my journal there. I'll try and make that as big as I can so we can read it. Yours will obviously be a lot more because you'll have lots more vendors. The whole top section are really just warnings, you know, invalid, you know, states, things like that you'll have to deal with. Down the bottom, the run totals is your important bit. It's going to tell you how many vendors were successfully processed. There's your warnings or errors that you can deal with, and then your total gross amount. Mine's come through as 0, but yours should match back the first report that we did. And then, of course, your total tax should match back to the report. And it's those numbers that you did, you know, that you want to really pay attention to and know that they are in the right ballpark. If this report sort of stops halfway, for example, and only gets up to, you know, 10 vendors when you know there should have been 100, for example, it's the last vendor listed that where the error will be. Okay, but if you were happy with everything that was in that journal report, you could go ahead and pick up your taxable payment file from your desktop and just upload that to the tax office. Yeah? Okay. Now, without a doubt, the most common problem that happens when generating this file is the ABN number. So I'll show you how and this is, we had this exact ticket come into the help desk last week, and this is how we fixed it. The client sent in a ticket and said, my journal report is stopping at vendor S something. And I went, okay, that's unusual. So this is what we did. Sorry, I stopped talking while I was going there. So I just went inquiry, vendor inquiries, and then I just went to the phone list because all I really want is a vendor list. Okay, and of course, hopefully we all know how to handle our inquiries. So if I click in the column header, I get my submenu and I'm just deleting some of those columns, get them out of the way. Well, and I want to delete that one. So if I click in the column header, I'm now going to take up the option to add a column. And I'm going to add the ABN number when I find it. Shout out Jacinda when you see it. I'm going to put in that field there, generate payment summary.
Second bottom on the list there.
And that's, yeah.
Sorry, my mute didn't undo very quickly.
Yeah, so AUC, Australian business number. So I'm on sample data. That's why there's none here, which is annoying. But the problem with the client last week, as soon as we brought this inquiry up, we jumped down to the S's because we knew that's where the journal report stopped. So the problem had to be right after that vendor. And as soon as we went to the last vendor generated, the next vendor, they'd actually entered the email address in the ABN field. And that was the problem, and that's why the file stopped. Okay. So that's a quick way to check your ABN numbers. You can bring it up on your screen and just cast your eye down that it's all numbers, that there's no punctuation, full stops, hyphens, or text characters in the ABN number. If you prefer, like all of your inquiries, you could export this to Excel and sort of scan it that way. And if you and you could put a filter on here to view the vendors that are flagged to generate for the payment summary, if you like. Okay, so if we have a look at our vendors now, in the vendor setup, so I'll just go to any vendor, and then in the payment, in the tax settings, there's the field for the ABN number. Sorry, I just have to look up that valid ABN now. 138. And it doesn't matter whether you put spaces in there or just type it straight through. Okay, that you could go either way. When the file generates, the file already automatically strips out any spaces. Spaces are fine. What you don't want is characters. What you don't ever want to do is put in hyphens like this. Or full stops or anything like that. Spaces and numbers only. So if you've got new staff coming on that are going to be adding vendors, make that one quite clear. Because just that little hyphen alone right there would make the entire file reject. Okay. And then of course this here is your checkbox for your generate taxable payments report. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Are there any questions just jumping in?
If you don't have a microphone, please just pop your question in the chat box and I will read it for Janelle.
Yeah.
I have some customers who actually do the vendor inquiry first before they even begin, just to sanitize and make sure they've got all the ticks in for the right people, you know, they generate taxable payments tick box correct for everybody and all the ABNs in the right format. Rather than waiting until you've got an issue. It just depends which way you prefer to go about that. And then we have other customers who never have a problem because they have a very clear process about how they set up their vendors when, you know, they teach anybody, and, you know, that process is followed very closely. So anybody, any questions, please pop it in the chat. Although I have to say Janelle was incredibly informative and covered everything within the topic. So I wouldn't have any questions if I was sitting watching it. So.
But just sort of, even if you do this inquiry first, because it is the most common problem, not having that ABN number correct. You know, in all the years I've done it, that's what it always comes back to.
Yes.
So basically, do your vendor inquiries, run your reconciliation report you know, you can do that in any order, obviously. Check that you're in the right year, you're good to go. And if there's anything there that you're not sure about, just send in a ticket to the help desk if you need that TPAR report or otherwise. We'll also mention that I think Lauren, she's not in today, so possibly tomorrow now, she'll be emailing out the printed instructions for what we've talked about today. And then, of course, if you want to see the recording of today's session, complete with my dog in the background barking, it's on our YouTube channel. Yes, we've got an entire YouTube channel with lots of recordings out there on these lunch and learns and other training sessions that we do as well. So by all means, look us up on YouTube and have a poke around there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Janelle. I'm guessing nobody has any questions. There's been plenty of opportunity. I want to thank Janelle for presenting that for us today, and thank you all for attending. And as Janelle said, any questions or need the copy of the report or whatever, just email help@thrivetech.com.au. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Janelle.
Thanks. Bye now.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.